Let's go back to 11th grade, or I think it was about 12th, beginning of 12th grade, right? Um, I was hanging out with my cousin sister that she's about 4 years older to me,
Mm.
and so again, I was as something that I did, it's almost unconsciously was doodle. I just would draw like random cartoons around the place, and I would find TV cabinets, and I would draw on the TV cabinet, and I would I would graffiti it out and stuff like that. But it
Yeah.
was something that I did without really thinking into it. I was just like, oh, this is what I like doing, and it's fun. I was so into like buying different pens. So any country I went to, I used to hit up like stationery stores. I mean, it was like a fancy little thing that I had in my head. I was like, cool pens, these ink pens and these gel pens and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I didn't really take it into consideration, and then so my cousin, she was just hanging out with me, and she was like, "Hey, you're pretty decent at drawing. Do you want to do animation?" And I was like, "What is that?"
Mm.
And she was like, you watch movies, cartoons and stuff. She's like, yeah, it's to make that. It's to make movies. And she was like, but you, if you, because she was in Vancouver Film School, which is she was doing visual effects, which is very different. I mean, I wouldn't say very different. It's a different tangent in animation. There's
Got it.
there's visual effects, there's animation.
Mm.
So she's doing visual effects, and she was like, you should do animation because that's a little bit more on the drawing side of things. And I was really fascinated. I was like, what do you mean I can draw? Like for the rest of my life, I can be doing this.
Mm.
And she's like, yeah. And then obviously, I didn't ask too many questions then, but it was in my head, it was so strong, and I was like, the thought that, oh my God, there's something else I could do, that I don't have to do this science again. This chemistry and physics, and because at that point I didn't really like it, right? I didn't
Mm.
want to do that stuff. It was so boring to me, and I'm like, I don't want to do this. I want to do anything but this.
Yeah.
And when this came my way, and then when I found out it was a legitimate degree you can get in, like where you can make your Indian parents happy, saying that I have a degree, college,
Yeah.
it's not just like a diploma or anything. It's crazy. And I looked into universities and programs, and again, internet, it wasn't what it is today back then, right?
Yeah.
The information on the internet was very limited in a
Hmm.
way. I mean, yeah, back then you would like, oh, this is like encyclopedia and stuff like that. But in reference to today, that was a very limited sort of information. And you Google it. When I Googled animation school, not one American school popped up on
Oh,
my
okay.
search. You know what I
Interesting.
mean?
Yeah.
Like, so because I was in Bahrain, and when I Googled it, I got general Asian universities. I
Got it.
didn't get a SCAD, never showed up. I didn't
Yeah.
even know what SCAD was, right?
Yeah.
Um, so I chose the university that looked best on paper to me, right?
Mm.
And because again, I didn't know what I was getting into at this point. I mean, I knew. I was like, okay, I watched all these movies again. I watched the spiel of Disney movies, right? Jungle Book and Lion King and etc. So
Yeah.
then I watched it from a different point of view, and I was like, oh, this is what I could do. But I mean, little did I know that that was a early '90s, '80s things, because then you draw on paper, but then now it's all digital. But again, I just knew, all like, cool, animation. We draw a lot. Great.
Yeah.
And I didn't really think too much into it. I was just like, hey, college, we're going to college. I can grow my hair.
Yeah.
So I didn't really think into what I was getting into, right?
Sure.
Because again, when I had gone to go to the, there was this entrance exam and stuff like that to get into the university. The entrance exam was to draw.
Oh, okay. Which was good for you, right?
Yeah, my mind was blown. I go there, and they give me these blank sheets of paper, and they have like these topics saying that, I think back there was a global warming, and or ice caps melting, something like that. Something that you have to illustrate it. You have to show what is in your head, right?
Mm.
That was wild, and I think I remember distinctively asking the professor, because he was. I mean, when I looked at him, and I found out that he was my art professor. He had long hair. He had hair up till here, and he got this goatee, and I was like,
Nice.
"You're my professor." And thing is, I was like, what do I draw? He was like, anything you want. I'm like, but I don't know what to draw to in order to like get into the university. And he's like, no, just draw, like, whatever you want to draw, just draw it, and then we'll think about the whole admission stuff later, but right now you just draw. And
Mm.
I was like, dude, all right, man. So I started drawing. I mean, it's something that I did it as such an aloof thing all these years of my life. all of a
Yeah.
sudden mattered. All of a sudden, what I draw mattered. Like someone's gonna look at it and grade it. I've never had that happen to me, right?
Nice.
And so yeah, there was a bit of restriction in my head and freedom, where I'm just like I'm writing an exam where it's drawing
Oh,
anything I want, but it's being graded, so I have to draw really correctly,
yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So I don't really remember what I drew and stuff like that. I just remember that it was this drawing that I did.
Yeah.
And yeah, well, I got into the university, and again, that was another whole process. I was like, so is that it? That's all you need from me? You just wanted to see how I draw? And they were like, yeah.